Genesis 1 and Genesis 3, we see identity, community, and ethics.
So, what all these things, this, from the narcissism to the self-esteem to the peer pressure to the belongingness, these are the goals, and not all of which are illicit. They're just maybe the means to which people try to get them is illicit. But what is being searched for that can only be found in Christ? So now we come to the theological portion of the evening. All these things. Okay, so these are the things on the table: belongingness, self-esteem, narcissism. How are those things provided for or put in their proper place through the relationship we can have with Christ?
So, I tell people this all the time: pray for me, because I have at least 10 books in my mind, dude. Like, it just,
me too.
I'm just like, I want to write a book. I just don't have time. My time is very limited. But I have at least 10 books in my mind right now on theology and psychology, and the one of them, maybe I'll do a peer-reviewed article, a journal article on this one, if I have the time. I just don't have it right now. But there's a thing that I created called the ICE method. All right, it comes from Genesis 1 and Genesis 3, from the very beginning. Genesis means beginning, right? And so Genesis 1 and Genesis 3, we see identity, community, and ethics. All right, the ICE method. All right, we see that from the very beginning of time. Genesis 1, 26, 27 says what? Let us make man in our image, right? Mm-hmm. So that talks of identity. We're the imago Dei, right? We're the image of God. So that is our identity, is in Christ. All right, let us make man. It talks about Elohim, which is the plurality of God, right? And so let us make man in our image. That speaks of community, and likeness. That speaks of holiness and reflection. It talks of ethics. All right, we see that in Genesis 2, right, with the creation, with man and woman, right, and then it becomes, the woman comes from the rib of the man. That talks about community, right? Then in chapter 3, we see ethics, right, with the temptation. So we see all of it in Genesis 1, and then we see community in 2, we see ethics in 3. So the first 3 chapters of Genesis really lays out the platform of human history when it comes to identity, community, ethics. All right. Say, for instance, now with the crate challenge and all that, we're still looking for that ICE method still applies. Yeah. When we think about fringe groups, like the Hebrew Israelites, for instance, that still applies, right? Identity, community, ethics. When we think of different communities that aren't necessarily biblically sound, that aren't supported scripturally, what we see a lot nowadays: identity, community, ethics. All right, and so the sense of belongingness from a psychological standpoint, that speaks in identity and community, and the offshoot of that, or the offspring of that, a lot of times comes with ethics. And that's the reason why people join cults a lot of times. It goes back to the cult phenomenon. They improperly find their identity in their community, and their ethical code or their worldview or their code of ethics. It springs from where they found their identity and community in. So if you join a cult group, the frame of ethics, like for instance, someone who's a Hebrew Israelite, right? Their identity is that, the Hebrews are the chosen people. You don't want to be, you don't want to be Edomite or Gentile. That's the okay. So the community is the band of Hebrew Israelites going around telling other people, the chosen or come from the Hebraic line and things like that. The paternally, a lot of the camps, paternally, that's where it comes from. Things like that's where your community comes in. So you have a lot of people on the street talking about what Hebrew Israelites preach as far as the true Hebrews, right? And their frame of ethics, right, comes from the obedience to the law. That's one of their biggest frames of ethics when it comes to how they live. Their ethical code. Law, 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 law. So if someone like a Christian like you and I easily dispel that by the whole book of Galatians and how Paul treated the Judaizers, right? Like it is Judaizers were like we've seen this before. Like they're the modern day Judaizers.
Yep.
So how Paul treated the Judaizers, a lot of Christians should nowadays just read the book of Galatians and you'll know how to talk to a Hebrew. And so that's how we see that. But at the same time, despite that, they'll still find any reason to say, okay, well, no, it's not this. And a lot of camps don't even really talk about Paul. A lot of the Hebrews like camps even dispel Paul as inspired word, as an inspiration, which is really odd. But at the same time, it's like, again, identity, community, ethics. All right. So from a theological standpoint, we just see a theological framework from the first 3 chapters of Genesis applied to so many things in life. The Crate Challenge, offshoot Christian camps. Jehovah's Witnesses call themselves Christian. Mormons call themselves Christian. A lot of Hebrew Israelites, mirror, say they're Christian. Some of them. Yeah. So we see that. We see that with different. Dude, there's pedophilia organizations now. There's people who are advocates of bestiality. You know what I mean? And there's, again, identity, community, ethics. And so when someone finds their identity somewhere, they want a band of people to kind of be yes men and kind of advocate that identity, and then their ethical code comes from that. As a Christian, our identity is in Christ Jesus. We are the Imago Dei. We have a community of fellow Christians to spread the ethical code to reflect Christ, because Christ is the ultimate answer. Jesus is the answer, as my brother said that in the very beginning. And so without Jesus, the ICE method is totally obsolete when it comes to anybody's worldview. But that's the type of frame of thinking that we think about all the time. This is going to boost our identity. This is going to, I have a community that's doing a bunch of crate challenges. That's the reason why a lot of those world star hip hop videos and those challenges, you have a gang of people surrounded and a whole bunch of people putting their video out before one of them call 911. Right?
Yeah.
Because that's where the identity is. That's where the community is. That shapes their ethical code. Instead of being altruistic and caring for the need of someone else, esteeming one higher than yourself, as Philippians would say, they're more prone to say, I'm going to get viral. I'm going to get all these shares. And unfortunately, and nowadays in modern day community, that's more important than helping a brother in need, is to become viral. So in short, the ICE method really applies across the board, man.
Man, yeah, you need to get that book out.
I do, man. Pray for me.